Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, today I'm going to actually take myself out of my comfort zone at least and talk about something that, well, almost everybody, especially the Gen Next, seems to be talking about, which is cryptocurrency. I've heard words like Bitcoins. Now we're hearing something called NFT, which we are told is non-fungible tokens. A lot of celebrities have jumped onto this bandwagon, which is why there is also a lot of added interest on it. So without further ado and without confusing you any further, I'm going to be introducing my panel of experts that are actually going to break down these terms for us in simple layman languages and make someone like me, and I guess most of you, understand what exactly is digital currency, what is cryptocurrency, what is Bitcoin, and so on and so forth. Joining me on the panel is Karthik Iyer. He is from Singapore. In fact, he is the CEO of BlockChain Monk. And what is more interesting, he's part of the foundation, the P2P foundation, which actually built the first Bitcoin. I believe Satoshi Nakamoto first published the blockchain, and no one knows who they are, whether they're a group of individuals or whether they are one person or whether it is Karthik himself. So he's going to explaining us a bit about what is Bitcoin. Joining me is also Pranjal Sharma. He's the author of India Automated. He's an economic journalist. He's a policy expert, but here he's also going to be helping us try and figure out, what exactly we are dealing with in digital currency. Dr. Jayjit Bhattacharya, he's the president of Digital Economy and Policy Research and one of my most familiar faces on the roundtable. And Mohit Moria, he runs a couple of growing internet companies, but he's also been involved in blockchain and crypto since 2016. And he's written two books, what the WTF is blockchain and WTF are NFTs, which exactly is what we are trying to figure out now. So Jayjit, if you can first, open and put the things into perspective for us, and then I'll get the others in.
Sure, Priya. As you rightly said, these terms seems to be confusing, mysterious to many people. And yet there seems to be a storm brewing up in the entire world in terms of both Bitcoin, which I think now more people understand, but now there's a new kid in town, which is NFT, which is based on the same technology. Essentially, both Bitcoins and NFT, what they do is they record the ownership of certain thing. And that thing could be a value, or it could be a thing in terms of a piece of art, or any physical object. And when it represents a physical object, it becomes what is called a non-fungible token, an NFT, instead of a Bitcoin. And that's where NFT essentially comes in. It's a record of what you really own. So if you own a piece of property and if it's recorded on blockchain, you could practically call it an NFT. It's the same representation that comes up. Now, what is really happening with NFT is that there is democratization of certain things, certain markets. To start with, it's art market, which is getting democratized because you can for sure record your ownership in a system which can't be broken. So if you say that you own an art of, let's say, Leonardo da Vinci for that matter, we'll know for sure that it's only Priya Sahgal who's owning it and it's not fake and she's the only owner because it's recorded in that system. The questions that starts coming up is who owns this system, right? And what is the veracity of that system itself, right? And how do we know that Priya Sahgal is the first one to really, own that piece of art, or is the current owner of that art? Because it's as good as what has been entered into that system. So that's essentially the pros and cons of the system. It's clearly better than what we have now, but it still has got loopholes, and also people are wondering why the value suddenly goes up once it becomes an NFT, because the same piece of art, if you're buying it in an offline manner versus recording it in a blockchain, why does the price suddenly go up? So those are some of the issues, and I'll stop over here and wait for other people's views.
Karthik, anything you want to add? And also, why is it the relevance for India? Where are we in all this, in this NFT story?
So first of all, Priya, I want to thank you for inviting me to this event. I listened to your Swami says, he's a great karma yogi, and I think you're a very elegant anchor. So kudos to you for, putting together sort of this discussion, which is very timely and relevant. So my friend Jayjit, I've known Jayjit for almost 15, 20 years, and he's a man of many worlds. And, he's given a very, very beautiful, succinct introduction to blockchain NFTs. So, but let me get a little bit deeper into it. So there are these two different types of tokens in the blockchain. One is called fungible, the other one is called non-fungible. So what do I mean by fungible? 100 rupee note with you and 100 rupee note with me represent the same value. We can exchange it, right? So if I give you my 100 rupee note and I take the 100 rupee note from you, it represents the same kind of value, right? You won't lose money and I won't lose money because it's just a different piece of paper. Whereas a non-fungible token is something like, let's say you have a Raja Ravi Verma painting and I have a Monet. These are very unique assets. And these unique assets need to be represented in the blockchain. They're non-fungible. You cannot swap them for the same value. So in the blockchain, there are two different types of tokens. The one is fungible, which is like Bitcoin, Ethereum. One Bitcoin with you and one Bitcoin with me represent the same value. But there are trillions of dollars of cultural assets in the world. Like I call it fame, fashion, art, music, and entertainment. So imagine millions of artists in India who today are not able to monetize their art, right? I mean, India, people say is a third world country, but I call it a first world country because we are very rich in culture. It's one of the most culturally rich countries in the world. And, I travel across the world. I mean, if people Google me, if they put in Karthik Iyer blockchain, there are some 100 keynotes on YouTube, literally in every major city in the world. And wherever I go, I see the influence of our Vedic elders, either the language is roots in Sanskrit, or if I go to, Thailand or Cambodia, you see the work of Surya Varman, who's a great king, who went and built Angkor Wat. And so our ancestors were never shy to experiment. And they were very, very, big thinkers in terms of expressing art and culture. And so today we have this opportunity where we can tap into a billion creative artists in India whose value can be unlocked, right?
But Karthik, they're selling the digital impressions. They're not selling the physical painting. So how is that so exclusive?
That is the $1 billion question, Priya. I think it's one of the most important questions. So my father used to take me to ISKCON when I was 13 years old. And our guru at ISKCON said, Isha Vasam Idam Sarvam. And the Krishna is the only reality. Everything else is collective fiction. So all money is collective fiction. And so,
like that, huh?
It's like that. And so Ayn Rand, whom I used to read when I was waking up, when I was growing up, says value doesn't mean anything. It's value to whom and value to what. If a group of people come and say baseball cards are valuable, then it becomes valuable. But the real value of NFT comes from scarcity. So let's take the example of Amitabh Bachchan's NFT. I mean, he's putting in his a recital of poems. His father was a great poet. He's a great actor. He's sort of like a great icon of India. And so the value of this NFT that is creating comes from scarcity. There are only 3 copies of that. So it becomes very scarce. And the second thing is it's very easy to transport. Imagine taking gold and walking around the world. It's very difficult. On the blockchain, all you need is a wallet. And you can store these assets in the wallet. And the most important thing is the bragging rights. You can open your wallet and say, hey, I've got this Amitabh Bachchan ka, whatever poem or whatever, and sabko dikha sakte hain hum. So I think this is where the value comes from, and billions and billions of dollars of value are going to be unlocked, and things that we've not even thought through, Priya.
I'll take you back. Mohit, I've heard of people losing money on Bitcoin. Is it like the stock market, or is there other danger since it's, as you said, it's an illusion, and it's, what happens when people stop believing in that illusion? Will I lose all my money?
Okay. Thank you so much, Priya ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. So before I jump onto your question, I just wanted to add a couple of things to Jayajit's and Karthik's fantastic answers. Just a couple of things that I have been asked a lot of times, but just by my friends, my families, there's nothing to touch. There's nothing tangible. Where's the value? This is just the digital impression. So this is the example that I give them. All of us here, everybody in the world, we are optimizing for money, the money that we earn. We do jobs, like our occupation is our identity. But money, if you really believe, only a tiny percentage of it is in cash. Otherwise, all the money is digital. But money holds value because the value is in the record keeping, where the record is kept of who owns what. Right now, that record is kept with banks. Similar to this record keeping, blockchain is nothing but just a new record keeping mechanism, a record keeping technology which is not owned by one organization, one country, or one group of people. It's permissionless, which means you can start keeping a record of it. It's totally based on math. you and everybody agrees 2 plus 2 is 4. So everybody can start validating these transactions and start keeping a record. That's where this record keeping mechanism has value. So whatever we put on this is secondary value. Now, as Karthik correctly mentioned, scarcity is one game. Scarcity gives, this is my second point, scarcity gives some sort of value. But over last 2 weeks, we have seen NFTs to be used in different contexts as well. Scarcity and bragging rights, fantastic use cases, very low hanging fruit when it comes to utility to art. But now we have seen two more use cases coming up. One is access to communities, exclusive communities. So using NFTs as a membership card. So if you own an NFT, you get exclusive access to certain communities. Now, what would you pay to be in the same room as Elon Musk? That is the question. That gives the value to those NFTs. So because being in that same room with these people sort of has different, like, intangible value in your head, and everybody values this value at different level. That's why NFT prices are up and down. And the second new use case that we are seeing is to be used as articles in games. So there are people who play PUBG, all different sort of games. There are different skins, there are different weapons, all of these things. But what if all of these unique items could be NFTs, where these could be purchased, transferred outside of the game? So you play game, you spend hours and hours of it collecting all of these items, and then you could trade them to earn bread and butter. Like, these are the new use cases that are coming up. Okay, now coming back to your question. Sorry, could you just repeat your question, please, ma'am?
No, I actually have forgotten my question also. I'll just bring Pranjal in.
Yeah, so people have lost money in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So is it like stock market?
Yeah.
So if you look from far, it is sort of like stock market, but not really. So in stock market, there is one important distinction, which is regulators coming in. So whatever goes on the stock market is sort of vetted by some sophisticated people out there who is trying to, like, sort of protect retail investors who do not have such sophisticated technology or information to make wise decisions. But I would say this is very much like early days of stock market in any country. Early days when everybody, some people see it as get rich quick scheme, where this is why people lose money. But when you look at any asset, be it Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any NFTs, all of these come with a different story. And like Karthik mentioned, and I'm totally believer in this, all of us live in collective fiction. So you just have to think, which collective fiction are you starting to believe in?
Let me get Pranjal, and also Pranjal knows a lot about the Indian regulations also. How will this fare in India, Pranjal, in terms of regulations, in terms of what happens when people stop believing this collective fiction?
So, Priya, firstly, let's understand that in concept terms, cryptocurrency is not new in India. If I can take us all to take a step back, there was a while in the 90s, until the 90s, the kind of shares that we held were paper shares. There were documents which were held in the hand. Then there was a huge process of dematerialization, which meant that basically if you bought a share, you bought a number, and that number denoted every value that the share had. So dematerialization means it's a material thing. It's no longer existing in physical form. We went through the same process when stamp paper scam happened, if you remember. And after that, the huge kind of stamp papers which used to be sold at various little kiosks across the country, most of them were fraudulent, were also in some ways dematerialized. And today, when we talk about fintech and financial transactions, all of us have, most of us have reduced or literally stopped using checkbooks. Cash is in the decline, but the value of the money which underlines that is still there. So cryptocurrency is essentially nothing more or nothing more different in terms of concept than any financial instrument which does not have a physical form. However, the difference today between cryptocurrencies, and people must understand, the experts are here, but for the audience, that there are more than 4,000 cryptocurrencies in the world right now, and literally anybody can come together. BlockChain is the platform, and then you can launch a currency based on that. And then, of course, its popularity is based on user transactions, etc. So I think the big concern amongst regulators, not just in India, but globally, is how do you manage it to ensure that people don't get cheated or don't enter it with some misrepresentation or are not misled by various claims. So I think at the core of it is about also investor education.
Jayjit, in terms of, again, the security aspect, would you recommend someone, are you, I don't know what is the right word, investing or dealing in Bitcoin? I mean, are you investing in them? Would you recommend it?
Well, I personally don't invest, and that's more because I'm waiting for the markets to mature. As I think Mohit mentioned, that each market takes time to mature. And what that maturity means is that the institutional support systems, the regulations, the institutions participating, including the private sector institutions, they all need to mature to a certain level. Till the time there is still excitement in investment, and there'll be certain people who are excited in that investment. I will not be one of them for the time being, but that does not mean that it's risky or not risky. That's a different proposition altogether. In terms of what are the issues with, let's say, an NFT for that matter, right? And these are issues that Pranjal kind of hinted on, that there were issues with the first set of dematerialization that happened. Now, dematerialization of, let's say, if we take shares, happened in a centralized manner. There was one authority mentioned, and you could dematerialize it at only one place. It's the same thing that's happened with NFT. You can, if you have a painting of, let's say, Raja Ravi Verma that Karthik mentioned, and you put it on an NFT that's being promoted by, let's say, Pranjal, and then you also put it on an NFT that's being promoted by Mohit. Now, which NFT is the correct one, right? And who is going to take responsibility if the same asset is sold twice? And that happens so rampantly in India. Trucks get hypothecated in multiple places, and therefore multiple loans are taking against the same truck. And the truck is in
property, even property, even huge
property,
buildings and structures are sold to multiple owners.
Which is why we came out with the SARFAESI Act, and the implementation of SARFAESI Act is still going on. The same issues are getting replicated, and clearly it's that it doesn't mean that because there are issues we run away from it. The point is to identify those issues and solve them one by one, because it is a very promising technology, and it does provide a level of security to the level that to the point that nobody can simply go and change the record. If you are owning a piece of art or piece of any other physical material, nobody can go back and change that and say, well, you're not owning it anymore. There is a certain technological process involved which ensures that your name can suddenly not be changed. So those are the pros and cons in terms of safety, Priya, to this new technology.
But Priya, I'll just add a point on building on what Jayjit said, and just to continue what I was saying. What is required from a regulator's perspective is a system, and they probably have to come out of their own structures to think of a completely new way of regulating these financial instruments in a way that they understand. Whether it's going to be centralized or it's going to be distributed is an important debate to have. But the question is, we will have to go, and all players, industry as well as regulators, will have to go on a massive investor education drive. That happened with very simple things like stock markets. The market regulator, SEBI, has a fund for that. Insurance, the insurance regulator has a fund for that. So every financial instrument you look at, there is a fund and a program to educate people. And I think so that an informed decision can be taken. And fundamentally, everywhere you invest, there will be a risk. If you enter with that visibility, then I think it's safe.
Good answer. And maybe Mohit can write another book. Quickly, you wanted to come in, Mohit?
Yes, just one thing. Just wanted to mention, because so that there is no confusion with the audience. We have been giving examples of Monet, Rajaram Mohan Roy, Mona Lisa. I just wanted to make sure the NFTs are natively digital, at least 99% of them. So it's not like some physical art or physical thing is there and that is converted to NFT that becomes valuable, and it could be sold twice. The art itself is a digital strings of zeros and ones. It's built. It was that NFT was born digital, and all the traces. And the beauty of blockchain is that everything is open. You could trace back to everything. So even if I just try to just take a screenshot of Jayjit's art and put it out as NFT, how most people discover NFTs is through the creators themselves. So probably somebody would be on Jayjit's website or reading his book, then they would get to know the address of the NFT, and then they would view the NFT. It will be very difficult to just impersonate somebody and then take the limelight. Just mentioning it out so that the audience is informed.
Good, because that preempted my next next question actually. So, but Karthik, how do you see the Indian market in terms of NFTs and digital currencies?
Well, as I mentioned, I think India is a culturally rich country. We have a very, very long heritage of art and culture and entertainment, and we just have to follow a path of our ancestors. They were very bold in expressing their art and culture. I mean, as we travel, I've traveled from Leh in Ladakh in the north to Kanyakumari in the south to Guwahati in the east to Gujarat in the west, and every state seems to have its own culture. Music, imagine Carnatic music. Imagine the beautiful embroidery of the Kashmiri.
But are we, how are we doing it? I mean, there's a whole lot of scope for it, but are we capitalizing it? Is India still behind? You've heard what the concerns about the rules and regulations, or rather the optimism, rather. Would you agree with what Pranjal said, for instance?
Well, I think one of the most important things for us, I'm also advising the government of Bhutan. I've advised various other governments in the past. And one of the things I'm seeing right now is that people are realizing that you cannot stop this technology. What are you trying to regulate? Are you trying to regulate technology? I mean, nobody regulates the internet. Nobody regulates the internet protocol. Nobody regulates a web browser. So blockchain at the end of the day is a technology. And it's a technology that is not stoppable because it's based on true decentralization. It is based on the principles of the internet, which is something called as headless node design. You cannot cut off the internet because there is no single internet server that somebody can switch off. It's based on DNS, and these are millions of servers around the world that contain the naming service. Even the Great Firewall of China is not able to stop traffic going out of their boundaries. And so what we need to understand is we need to believe in our ancestors. The ancestors were very bold. They went and taught all these different cultures across the world. I mean, India was the great Vishwaguru. And I think we need to be bold because we owe it to our current generation to be doing this. And I think, we have one of the best prime ministers India's ever had. I think we have a finance minister who's openly come out and said that, they're going to start, researching this. They're going to be sandboxes and all of that. So I'm extremely optimistic about the Indian government's approach to blockchain. They're not saying, I'm going to outright ban like a couple of other countries did. On the other side,
Priya, if I can ask a question of Karthik, and that's something which maybe Jajit can also answer. In my view, investor protection and regulation is at the key among the concerns of the government, not just in India, everywhere. So my question to both Karthik and Jajit is, what kind of approach should the regulators have in terms of ensuring that we open it up and we allow progress, but at the same time, do not allow people to be misled or be cheated?
So, Pranjal, I think it's a very, very important question, right? At the end of the day, we don't want to throw the baby out of the bathwater, as they would say. And it's even now, I've been there from the beginning since 2008, 2009, and I've seen this grow for 12 years. And I would say that even today, it's in the very early stages of its evolution, innovation. It's like the 1992 of the internet. So one of the things that the government can do is it can set up sandboxes where it can study. And the Singapore government, where I live, the MAS has been pioneering in this thing. They've set up sandboxes where they invite certain blockchain companies, they study them, they provide licenses for them to operate. And so I think we can take that approach, but we should also I think we have this very dharmic, very soft approach to governance where we let go of people. I think we need to make examples of violators. We need to, show the rest of the people that 99% of Indians are good, law-abiding citizens. And so if you do this in India, this is what will happen. And I think government has done that in the past too. They've gone and cracked down all these, Ponzi schemes, pump and dump schemes, and all that. So I think things are okay in India. I mean, I think the approach that the government has done now, because you don't over-regulate something, you don't want to under-regulate something. And there's a saying in Tamil, "Uragodu otti orugal," which basically means go as where the world goes. Don't try and stand out, right? If the whole world is going to embrace this thing, don't block it. I mean, let's try and, be one with the world. And blockchain is not really about one country or one company. The real value of blockchain is collaboration. It's a truth machine, as they call it. There are different versions of the truth that come together and they become one. And today governments are building things like CBDCs where they're settling between countries, trade and commerce and all that. So if we cut this thing down, billions of dollars and trillions of dollars of employment and commerce can get impacted. There are only two games in town right now. One is called as capital output ratios. The other one is economic multiplier effect. I mean, China is going and doing this BRI because they know by giving loans they could get much higher bang for the buck, right? And they're creating massive economic multiplier effects by creating jobs. And these are only two games in town. We need to create jobs for young people, and we need to increase our Mahalakshmi that comes into our country. And so we need to do whatever
Karthik, I'm going to cut you short because we are totally out of time. Well, quick last word from Jayjit to Pranjal's question, but a short answer.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. No, there is huge amount of optimism on these new technologies, but I think we also need to exercise a lot of caution. And I think there were all the right reasons that Karthik mentioned why we should be moving forward. I'll just leave behind a thought that if Nirav Modi had to take all his stash of whatever thousands of crores he had to take, he would have just put that in a pen drive using Bitcoins, got into a flight and landed wherever, turned that into real money and be lost forever for the rest of the world. And I think those are some of the challenges we do need to solve as we move forward. And it's a great opportunity we have in terms of technology, as Karthik mentioned, but we do need to solve this issue of the flip side of this technology.
Thank you. We're totally out of time. So if you have a short answer, fine. Otherwise, I don't have time.
Yes. 30 seconds. So I would just say when it comes to regulation, instead of overprotecting people, I would just try to enable them, bring in regulations in a way that enables them, inform them. And if I were leading the country, all I would do is give everybody $100 worth of Bitcoin so that they can play with it, learn by doing themselves. This is what I would have done.
Subsidy for Bitcoin, why not? On that note, thank you so much, all of you, for this conversation. And we're going to get you back soon. We ran out of time, but thank you all for this conversation.
Thank you,
Priya.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.